Good morning and welcome to the New York City Council Committee on Civil Service and Labor. Please place your phone on silent or vibrate mode. Anytime during this hearing, do not approach the dais. Chair, we are ready to begin.
Good morning and welcome to today's hearing of the New York City Council Committee on Civil Service and Labor. I am Councilmember Shirley Aldebal, Chair of this committee. Today we will be discussing hiring strategies for the new mayoral administration and how the administration intends to rebuild the municipal workforce after several years of continued vacancies in civil service. As a city of over 8.5 million residents and a primary global tourist destination, New York City relies heavily on its dedicated municipal workforce to keep operations running smoothly. The civil service encompasses a vast range of careers, from sanitation workers to teachers to hospital to safety agents, all of whom dedicate their lives to contributing to the city. Yet, despite the essential functions that municipal agencies are designated to perform, the city has been facing persistent vacancies in civil service for several years. As of March 31st of this year, there were over 307,000 authorized positions across civil service titles, yet only 291,752 positions are currently filled. That leaves a vacancy rate of 5%, or roughly 15,500 unfilled positions. In particular, the Department of Homeless Services, the Department of Correction, the Department of Citywide Administrative Services face the highest rates of vacancies, with DHS exhibiting a vacancy rate of over 26%. These vacancies are the product of several factors, including the 2-for-1 hiring policy implemented under then Mayor Eric Adams, under which only one person could be hired for every 2 people who departed their position. Other factors include the long wait times between the administration of a civil service examination and hiring, which disincentivizes candidates who cannot afford to wait for over a year to receive a job offer. As Mayor Mamdani has come into office, he has announced several initiatives to improve staffing and address bureaucratic delays that have discouraged many highly qualified applicants from pursuing careers with civil service. We intend to address those initiatives at our oversight hearing today, and we hope to learn more about how this current administration intends to improve the hiring process and fill the existing vacancies to expedite and improve the delivery of crucial city services to New Yorkers. I'd like to thank the committee staff, Senior Policy Analyst Nina Rosenberg, Senior Legislative Counsel Ree Ogasawara, for their hard work preparing for this hearing. I'd also like to thank my Chief of Staff, Sophia Brown, and my whole district team for the work that you do. At this point, we've been joined by Councilmember Frank Morano. So we will now hear testimony from representatives from DCAS and OLR. I now turn to Committee Counsel to administer the oath for this panel.
Thank you, Chair. We will now hear testimony from the administration. Before we begin, I will administer the affirmation. Panelists, please raise your right hand. I will read the affirmation once, then call on each of you individually to respond. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I like to read an abridged version of the testimony to spare you from listening to my reading voice, but we'll submit for the record. I think we've already submitted for the record a longer version of it, which has more of the details.
Thank you.
And then we can get to questions. So good morning, Chair and members of the City Council's Committee on Civil Service and Labor. My name is Nycc, and I am the Commissioner for the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, more commonly known as DCAS. I'm joined today by my colleagues Katrina Porter, DCAS Deputy Commissioner of the Human Capital Division, and Dan Pollack, the First Deputy Commissioner with the Office of Labor Relations. One of DCAS's primary missions is to support employees' professional development. We're proud to say that we are there for municipal staff from the first day of work until the day that they retire. We also understand the Council's interest in ensuring that the city's civil service system remains strong, robust, and ever transformational, as it is a critical component of government service delivery. I believe in the importance of the civil service system and the promise of a more fair hiring system, one meant to cut out cronyism and abuse and prioritize fairness, equity, and integrity. That said, It is a system that is over 100 years old, and we also believe it's an important time to work on modernizing the system for our workforce of today, something that we are looking forward to doing with our partners in labor and all of you. Today, as we begin this discussion, I will speak to some of the key components of our efforts to promote city work, including our efforts to recruit top talent through the pipeline to civil service, and of course, our role in administering the civil service exams. More than 80% of city government positions require a civil service test, and it is the most critical pathway to service that we oversee. Specifically, our human capital team oversees the civil service examination administration, typically administering more than 200 exams annually. Administering exams is one thing. Making sure New Yorkers are aware of the process and sign up to attend exams is another. And we have been working to broaden the reach of our civil service exams. This includes making exams more accessible and streamlining the process. And we have also moved to fully computer-based testing, meaning no more pencil and paper. Another innovation that we have implemented is the New York City Bridge Exam. With the New York City Bridge Exam, candidates pay one fee, sit for one test, and become eligible for multiple positions. For recruitment, our Office of Citywide Recruitment makes stops in all 5 boroughs, participating in hiring halls and career fairs, and meeting our neighbors looking for work right in their communities. And I'm proud to say that we have engaged tens of thousands of prospective candidates across the 5 boroughs throughout these programs. In addition, we also publish the NYC Jobs newsletter, which is the hottest newsletter in New York City. And we send out semi-monthly and monthly e-blasts to get the word out to hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers about career opportunities in municipal government, in addition to efforts undertaken at the agency level. With the monthly NYC Jobs newsletter alone, we reach more than 200,000 New Yorkers looking for work. And beyond, we also manage and maintain the NYC Jobs website. In 2025, the NYC Jobs website received over 1.8 million applications. In addition to our exams and our recruitment and promotion efforts surrounding them, we also successfully operate several pathway programs. These alternative pathways to municipal service, often geared towards younger New Yorkers, include the Civil Service Pathways Fellowship Program, Urban Fellows Program, Public Service Corps, and the NYC Summer Internship Program. These programs are an important tool for the city to create pipelines of job-ready talent for city jobs and public service. I would be remiss if I did not also mention our 55A program, which allows a qualified person with a certified mental or physical disability to be hired into competitive civil service positions without having to take an exam. While not specifically geared toward our city's youth, it is nonetheless a valuable asset in our recruiting portfolio. Through our 55A program, eligible persons are evaluated for positions on the basis of their qualifications and interviews, and this program is intended as an equalizer for municipal hiring and promotes city work in an equitable manner for New Yorkers. Beyond our civil service exams and our efforts to expand pathways and recruit for municipal work, we are also pursuing a variety of new initiatives to improve the avenues for professional development for city workers and in turn increase the retention of city employees. Professional development is a key tool for us, and we have a variety of programs that look to enhance staff skills, including our NYC Management Academy, Leadership Institute, Training Expos, and the DCAS course catalog, and access to our ever-expanding e-learning platform, New York City Learn. We have also looked to expand more traditional educational opportunities, including through our recently rebranded Mayor's Scholarship Program. I'm happy to share that just last month we announced the launch of undergraduate scholarships for the first time ever, which now provides civil servants with the opportunity to pursue undergraduate bachelor's and associate's degrees and receive financial assistance. As of launching the program, 10 colleges and universities have agreed to participate with additional institutions in the pipeline, and we are very excited for the potential for our staff because of this expansion. Also coming later this year, we will be opening the city's first free on-site childcare pilot program for city workers. This opens the door, literally, to more than 2,000 employees across a dozen municipal agencies with the potential to put upwards of $20,000 a year back in the pockets of working families. Finally, when looking at the data, we see that the City of New York is competitive with the private sector when it comes to filling vacancies with talented New Yorkers. And our retention rate of 90% is similar to other large public sector employers like New York State, which is also at 90%. Data indicates that citywide agency vacancies are at approximately 5%, which is down from a high of 8.4% in November 2021. And we continue to see very high rates for both retention and tenure. We raise these stats to highlight that even though we have more work to do, New York City government jobs are good jobs, and we are here to ensure that they remain so. We're dedicated and passionate about advancing municipal work, and we're committed to keeping the City of New York as an employer of choice for New Yorkers. As commissioner, hiring and retaining the brightest and most talented New Yorkers is one of my top priorities. Through our efforts to strengthen the civil service system, amplify our recruitment efforts, and ensure access to city jobs to all New Yorkers, and innovatively expand our retention programs, New York City will continue to thrive. I look forward to advancing these efforts in partnership with the City Council, and I'm happy to now answer any questions that you might have.
You can go ahead, 'cause I'll ask. You don't have anything? Okay.
We try to be efficient so that you can get to questions.
Wow. So I do have a few questions. Do you have any questions?
Sure, but now follow your lead. Thank you.
Okay. So on February 17th, 2026, Mayor Mondami held a press conference as he released the fiscal year 2027 preliminary budget. And during his press conference, the mayor said that the administration would significantly reduce current vacancies and remove hiring constraints to promote effective agency operations. Later, at the March 25th Finance preliminary budget hearing, OMB stated that they are undertaking a vacancy alignment exercise and are working with the agencies to establish their correct personnel services budget. Can you elaborate on this plan to expedite hiring for 50% of current vacancies and describe how the administration intends to reduce current vacancy?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember. I think that, as you noted in your testimony, one of the things that we, as city agencies, have been working under is the 2-for-1. And as the mayor announced, as part of this budget, one of the things that we're doing is the 2-for-1 is going to go away. And so we think that will have a big impact on agencies' ability to hire and fill their vacancies.
Are you working with OMB now on this vacancy alignment exercise? What does that look like, and when do you think this process will?
Yes. So yes, we are absolutely.
It will conclude, because I feel like
Yes.
with city service, it's going to constantly be an evolving project. But
Absolutely. We work closely with OMB all year round, and we are working closely with them in this process. I think the heart of the conversation is making sure that as we sort of address the vacancies that we have, any sort of vacancy reductions we want to make sure don't impact the core of city services, and so that's something that we've had very fruitful conversations with them on.
will there be any distinctions made between titles that are uniformed, civilian, pedagogical? If so, how will those categories of titles be treated differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an agency by agency exercise. So each agency, they are sort of having different conversations about the ensuring that the operations aren't impacted. But we can get back to you on other agencies that are not here today.
Have there been any amendments made to the civil service exam schedule that was released last July to help meet the mayor's hiring goals?
So we are constantly, as part of our process, working with agencies to make sure that the exams that we're offering are aligned with what they actually need to fill position-wise. But I'll hand it to the Deputy Commissioner, Katrina Porter, to talk about what changes we've made.
Thank you. So to address your question, yes, there have been amendments to the current examination schedule. And mostly these changes are made to support agency recruitment efforts and or, staffing constraints, right? So sometimes we may need to move an exam to later in the schedule to support an agency's ability to participate in the examination process. But for the most part, the exam schedule has moved forward as published at the beginning of the fiscal year.
So as you mentioned in your testimony today, the bridge exam is a key tool used to improve recruitment by offering applicants the opportunity to take one test and to be eligible for several roles. This offers an opportunity to many qualified New Yorkers who are struggling financially and do not have the ability to pay multiple exam fees. However, there seems to have only been one bridge exam administered in fiscal year 26. Do you anticipate adding more bridge exams to the fiscal year 27 exam calendar? And how do you assess what positions are eligible to be grouped together for a bridge exam?
So as you noted, Chair, we did have one bridge exam that was offered this fiscal year for up to 10 titles. They're complicated exams, so I think that's one limitation, but I'll hand it to the Deputy Commissioner to elaborate.
Just by way of background, DCAS in the city has been administering bridge exams since 2022. So far we've administered 4 bridge exams, and we've made over 1,300 appointments from those lists. The goal is to offer 1 bridge exam each fiscal year, and we determine the titles to be included through what we call a job analysis. So we look at titles that may have similar qualifications and or skills, and we, talk to employees who serve in those titles to find commonalities across the title so that we can build bridge exams. So you're correct, we only offered 1, but that was the goal, to offer 1 each fiscal year.
And I'll just note, we are a big fan of this tool. We do think that it is helpful for people because they can take one exam and end up being on multiple lists, which I think addresses some of the sort of pain points that you sort of described earlier in your testimony. But it sort of depends on which exams we need to offer and how much they're sort of clustered together in terms of skills.
And what have been, if any, that you've been able to identify, what have been barriers to entry to civil service exam? I mean, we heard you testified and heard others testify in the past that, it takes a long time, right, between, taking an exam, being called off the list, and even if they're called off a list, it takes sometimes 6 months to actually get hired and be in place. So I have a couple of concerns. One, what's happening here? Because if someone has to wait a year and a half to get hired, they're going to go find a job someplace else.
Right.
And so we're potentially losing a lot of talent. And my second concern is if you're technically hiring that person or making them an offer of employment, does that change is that no longer considered a vacant position, and are the numbers off in some way? So I just want to hear, what can we do to make that process faster, more efficient?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I think that it's going to sound superficial, but to me, actually, the number one issue is the complexity of the system itself and how much New Yorkers actually understand it. I think if you ask a normal New Yorker, they may not even know what a civil service test is. And that's a job that we have to tackle, is really explaining to the public, not only this is what civil service is, but also this is how you get city jobs. And I do think that is a major barrier. The other piece of that, within that is also the fact that I think, understandably, people think, if I take a test and I get on a list, I am immediately now in line for a job. But it's a bifurcated system in the sense that we give you tests and you end up on lists if you pass. So you're qualified, meaning you're qualified to do these jobs. Those jobs might not yet be hiring. So you're on a list that's ready to be hired, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those jobs are actually ready to be hired at this moment. So our job is to the extent possible, coordinate with our agencies to make sure that we're offering tests in line with the jobs that they actually need to hire. But there will always be people on the lists that, as you work your way down the list, who don't yet have job openings. And so that creates that sort of disconnect, I think, where you took a test and now you're waiting for a year and a half. And I understand that can be quite frustrating. So I think one component of that is public education and making sure people understand when you take the test what that actually means, and also that to take the test in the first place. And then I think the second component is the work that we're constantly doing with our agencies to sort of align the tests that we're offering with the jobs that they're trying to fill.
Do you have any questions, Greg?
Thank you, Commissioner, for your testimony. You mentioned 1.8 million applications to NYC jobs. How many of those resulted in actual hires?
Approximately 20,000.
And at what stage from 1.8 million to 20,000, are we losing the most people?
So I don't know that we're losing folks from that process. The NYC job site is used for positions that do not require the use of a civil service list. So it's an interview process. So it really it's determined by the candidate's education, their experience to the position that they're applying for. So it's more of an interview process and not based on examinations.
From the moment someone applies to the day they start work, what's the average timeline right now?
So just to clarify, are you talking about a civil service job, or are you talking about a provisional hire or a
Well,
civil service job?
I mean, anybody that would go into this 1.8 million application or 20,000 hire basket. So if they're in two different categories, if you know the timeline in either or both,
Okay.
I'll take both.
So hiring is tracked at the agency level. It's not a metric that we track at DCAS. We do recognize that that is important information for us to understand in order to support agency hiring, and we're looking for ways to do so, but currently we do not track the time of hire at the agency level.
Commissioner, you mentioned modernizing a 100-year-old civil service system, and I think that's a big part of what the committee's interested in. What specifically do you think that means in the next 12 months? What's slowing things down the most from your perspective?
So I don't want to get ahead of the conversations we're having with our partners at the state and with our partners in labor, but there's certainly a number of things that we're trying to get at. I think one of them is, sort of the public education component, which I think is, like I said, one of actually the biggest barriers. We're also thinking about technology and how we can use technology to improve our system, which the Deputy Commissioner can elaborate on. And then, I think, from a legislative standpoint, I think the question is sort of how do we improve our examination system itself, and what are the legislative constraints around it?
Is there any one rule that you'd eliminate now, if you could?
I don't want to get ahead of our conversations with our friends in labor who are sitting behind me, I assume. But I will say that I'm very excited about this, and that's actually one of the reasons why I came to testify today, instead of just sending the Deputy Commissioner. And I will come back to you as soon as we have a baked legislative agenda, because I would like to have your support for it.
You mentioned that the exams can now be taken anytime and anywhere, which is terrific. Why do you think we're still constrained by slow hiring timelines? What's the actual bottleneck today? Is it testing? Is it certification? Is it hiring approval? Is it something else?
I think, I think, Councilmember, first of all, I just want to say I agree with their sentiments. Like, I think our goal is to really tackle this very problem that you've put your finger on, which is that we want to make sure that the city is able to hire quickly. And I would say, it's sort of a multi-part answer to your question. I think in terms of just straight up hiring, the 2-for-1 going away will be, I think, have a huge impact on the agency's ability to hire quickly, which is why we're very grateful to OMB and the administration for making that change. And, in terms of civil service, I think there will, when you have a testing system, there will always be a little bit of process, but how do we get that process as tight as possible?
The chair asked you about the bridge exam, and
Yes.
you mentioned the bridge exam in your testimony. Just so I'm clear, and I'm sorry if you mentioned this already. How many people have actually been hired through the bridge exam?
Do we have that set?
The number is approximately 1,300.
1,300. And why aren't we scaling that aggressively if it lowers barriers and lowers costs?
I think that the short answer is it makes the test itself more complex because you're asking questions for 10 different jobs instead of one job. So it's both more complicated to make that test, and also, it's a more complex test for the test taker as well. But I'll let the Deputy Commissioner elaborate.
What I would add is that the creation of the annual examination schedule, it's a collaborative effort with our city agencies. So the exams that appear on the schedule are those in which agencies may have an immediate or future hiring need. So the titles that we include may not be a good fit for the bridge exam, but as a part of our analysis, we do look for opportunities to consolidate exams. So one example I'll give you is most recently we expanded our bridge model to include public safety titles. So we gave an exam for school safety agent, traffic enforcement agent, sanitation enforcement agent, and special officer, all in one exam. And so, just one example of how we're, always looking for ways to expand capacity and to streamline, our examination program.
Madam Chair, if I could squeeze in one last one. You mentioned a 90% retention rate, which is extraordinary. If retention is that strong, why are vacancy rates still so high in critical agencies?
So, Councilmember, I will say, as an agency head, I am also thinking about this deeply because I want to make sure that we fill our vacancies as well. I would say that the simplest thing is we do think with the 2-for-1 going away, it'll make it much easier for agencies to hire. So I think that's part of it. I think also we at DCAS are constantly thinking about recruitment and how we can support our agencies with recruitment. There are many titles that I think not even within the public sector, but across the private sector and the public sector are hard titles to fill. And so that's also something that we're thinking about when we do our recruitment support for city agencies.
Thank you. I actually have to run to another hearing across the street, but I will be reviewing everyone's testimony in depth and watching the rest of your answers later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I have a follow-up question. Do you have data on by agency on turnover and retention rates for each agency? Because I imagine they're different depending on the agencies.
DCAS is not the agency that tracks that, but we can talk to the mayor's office and see if they have additional detail.
And also, I would reference our workforce profile report, which has some of that data there. We're expecting to release the FY25 report by the end of the month.
So that's a report that we gather data from other agencies. But if you're looking for real-time data, I guess that's what I mean.
Yeah. And are there particular agencies or job titles where there has been difficulty to recruit, and what are your plans?
Yes, the hard to recruit titles. Yes,
Yeah.
We can follow up after this hearing with some more detail on that if that's helpful.
Okay.
But that is like part of the process that we work through with agencies is when they are, if there are titles that are hard to recruit for.
Okay. More questions. We've heard that some agencies have been using AI or automated decision-making systems to assist in administrative tasks. Does DCAS utilize any automated systems to help in the scheduling or administration of exams, placement on eligible lists, or any other functions?
So I will just say it's our position that we are not interested in replacing human decision making with AI.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful to know. That's helpful to know.
Yes.
Also, I understand that there are hiring halls. Is that correct?
Yes. So SBS is now running the hiring halls in part because part of the jobs that they're offering are also non-city jobs. So they've taken over that function. But we do a lot of we've started also running hiring pools again, which are slightly different. But we do them with city agencies where you can have people come in and interview for jobs.
And do the what are the metrics? Like, you have a hiring hall. Like, how are you measuring success of the hiring halls or this other?
So the hiring pools, I just will clarify, those are like civil service based. So you would call in people who are on a list to interview. I don't know if you want to add, what our stats are there.
So I would I would reference an event that we, hosted recently. We heard from agencies that they had a hiring need for engineers. And so we held a hiring event where we had all of the agencies come in to one room to expand capacity and, to help the candidates understand the breadth of available vacancies across the city. And overall, we saw several hundred folks come through where we offered on the spot job interviews and appointments. I can get back to you on the actual number of appointments made, but those are some of the strategies that we're using to help agencies fill immediate hiring needs.
I think just to answer your question also, I think the two things that we're always thinking about are when we're thinking about the hiring process and improving the hiring process is how do we make sure that agencies are able to hire the talent that they need in an expeditious way, and how do we make sure that job seekers are able to find jobs that they're suited for. So we have to sort of think of it always from those two different angles.
And how do you, in terms of recruitment for any of these jobs, and including entry-level jobs, how do you work with CUNY and some of the other colleges in New York City, New York State, to familiarize students with civil service, city service?
Yes, I didn't even plant this question, but we're very glad to have the opportunity to answer it. So actually, this is actually a part that and not that I ever plant questions, to be clear, but no. So we actually had a chunk of our testimony that was about these programs. So I want to give it to the Deputy Commissioner to highlight some of the programs that we have.
Yeah, sure. So one that is directly tied to CUNY is our Civil Service Pathway Fellowship. It's a 2-year fellowship for recent CUNY grads where they're able to come in and work for city government in one of 6 tracks. And so currently we have approximately 178 participants in our program across various agencies. And we're actually about to start a new cohort in June for approximately an additional 80 80 participants. In addition to the CUNY Fellowship, we also have Public Service Corp, which is the city's longest standing off-campus internship. The program is actually turning 60 years old this year. And we've been focusing on, engaging more folks to participate in the the Public Service Corp. And we have many other pathway programs that we use to engage folks who are interested in joining city government.
And I just want to say we're big fans of these programs. We have folks on our staff who are our fellows from these programs, and they're great.
And so how do you measure the success of these programs? Like, what are your goals for recruitment? Do you also engage with folks at the high school level for jobs that don't necessarily require a college degree? How is your engagement with like the DOE and other city programs to help particularly young people engage in city service?
Right. I think one of the things that we're thinking about when we think about these programs is not just how do you offer an opportunity for young people to get work experience, but also how do you turn it into an actual city career. So one of the things that we're looking at is do the young people who do these programs stay in city service and go on to careers with other city agencies. So we have that number and we can share it with you after this if that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
But it's high. I will say it's high.
Nobody's online to ask questions? No. Okay. So thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you. And we look forward to coming back and having more conversations with you about civil service.
Oh, you know what? I have one for you.
Okay, great.
That's why you're here.
While you're here. So on the OLR website, there are a list of collective bargaining agreements and memoranda the city has entered into with municipal labor unions, several of which are set to expire in 2026. In general, how far in advance of a collective bargaining agreement end date do you begin negotiation discussions for the next agreement?
Thank you for that question. Chair. It's a timely question, obviously. DC 37, our largest union, is expiring their contract in November. And I would say it varies. I would say historically, the city often bargains retroactively. It's not ideal. I think, in an ideal world, we would, have an agreement in place soon after or before the agreement ends. But, it's just kind of a fact of life in the city historically that we've bargained retroactively. When we actually start negotiations depends on, the ability of us as well as the unions to be ready to engage in those conversations. But, as I'm sure you're aware from your history in labor, there are also, always conversations happening. So, we're always discussing kind of what things could look like going forward. And while we haven't really sat down to engage in formal bargaining for the next round yet, obviously it's something that we are very much considering as we see those contract expiration dates coming.
Has OLR seen any data on how much it has cost the city to address high attrition rates, including the time and resources incurred to hire and train new employees? Could those costs be redirected towards increasing salaries for employees in hard to recruit titles or titles where there's a high turnover?
Thank you for the question. We do not keep that data. Like OLR doesn't maintain that kind of data that would be kept at the agency level. To the extent that there are savings to be achieved through bargaining, it's something we're always willing to look at. I will say one of the challenges with, trying to improve retention, assuming savings from improved recruitment and retention is, as, has been discussed, there are a lot of factors related to recruitment and retention. It's not always just salary. Obviously, salary plays a large role, but there are often numerous factors, but it's always something we're willing to look at and discuss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's always retroactive.
So I guess we're starting here. And there's no one on Zoom.
Okay, so I'm going to now open the floor for public testimony. Before we begin, I want to remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and decorum shall be observed at all time. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. And the witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait for your name to be called. Once you have been recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's oversight topic of hiring strategies for the new administration. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. When you hear your name, please come up to the witness panel. So we invite Henry Garrido, DC 37, Gloria Middleton, CWA 1180, and Robin Blair Battle, CWA 1180. Good morning. Good morning. Always wonderful to see you. Whoever wants to start. Henry, you want to start? You can.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. My name is Henry Garrido. I'm the Executive Director of District Council 37. We are the largest municipal union representing 150,000 city workers. And about 90,000 retirees. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I have no written testimony, but I much rather speak from experience. And so I'm grateful for the opportunity. I heard a partial testimony for DCAS, and I want to offer my perspective on how we can begin the process rebuilding our municipal workforce. As one of the largest city union, we've had some experience and recommended to the previous administration how we move forward on the thousands of vacancies that still exist within the city. And during the last administration, the Adams administration, we proposed, for instance, the idea of hiring halls as an opportunity to give the community access for jobs that are otherwise a civil service. The concept was to demystify the process of onboarding city workers. Civil service can be complicated. It could be costly to some folks, especially low-income members of the community. And trying to take away the myriad of contract rules, of civil service requirements, I think is something that we need to address. Unfortunately, that process was taken, promoted, only to see the Office of Management and Budget thwart the process, so that even when we coordinated with DCAS, with the then Commissioner Don Pinac, to advertise it, most of those community hiring practices and hiring halls had well over 1,000 people attend each one of them. The concept was that the agency could interview, offer the position, bypass some provisions if required, make an actual offer so that people can walk out with a letter offered, only to be COMB, stop the process altogether, and insist on hiring people through a PARPS process that was quite hurtful to what we were intended to do. People were not going to wait months and months for a job, right? And especially people who were qualified, jobs that require licenses, that was very disheartening. So I'm encouraged to see the new administration trying to take a different approach, starting with a memo that was sent to the agencies allowing up to 50% of the hiring on those vacancies. And so we'd like to see that process going forward. But having said that, I think there are some principles that we'd like to maintain. Obviously, we want to see the ranks of city workers replenished. I think it's necessary to maintain services to New Yorkers. But I think that we are concerned about some of the ideas that have been floated statewide that we have seen before. As my daughter says, we've seen this movie before. And one of those is bypassing civil service, like the HELP program that was proposed during the pandemic. Essentially what it is you waive the exam fee, which we think is a good thing, and then you hire without having to take a test. You appoint someone, and in 2 years you can make them permanent. The state is proposing at the state civil service provision to do this statewide. We are opposing this. We have opposed it for a variety of reasons. One of those is the fact that we have thousands of workers already in civil service lists who have taken the exams, who have gone through the process of paying the fee, who have taken all the necessary requirements to qualify, and they're waiting on civil service list, and it's not fair for them who have already done so. And secondly, because it opens the opportunity for nepotism. And we saw that, and we still believe merit and fitness is something that should be the basis by which those positions are filled. And for that, it requires examinations. It requires DCAS to have the resources it needs. And so we are very concerned about the state approach. They're claiming that this is an opportunity to get better representation of minorities and people of color. I think that situation is already in the city of New York. We are quite different from the rest of the state. And for that, we continue to oppose the bypassing of the civil service test as a new approach to hiring. We support Pathways, a program like the fellowship that was mentioned, in order to allow mentorship, but we think it should be expanded.
I have a question. How do you feel about the qualified incumbent exam?
Well, that's something we propose, and we not only propose at DC 37 supported legislation, but it's actually kind of our idea because it makes no sense for us to have people have to go through multiple layers of examinations, even when they not only been sitting on the job, but also when they have licenses already. So I'll give you an example, right? Motor vehicle operators. We've lost 50% of motor vehicle operators in the city of New York. And we have vacancies in New York. You're required to have a CDL license. If you take a written exam to qualify, you have to wait 18 months to have a CDL written exam for the road test. Someone with a CDL is not going to wait 18 months for that. They could get a job with Amazon or any other private insurance with the CDL license. So it makes no sense for the city to have to wait this long. And so what happens is by the time they issue the road test, no one can go and will take the exam. And motor vehicle operators are critical towards moving folks in hospitals, in shelters, and other places. IT workers have the same issue. You get a certified cybersecurity position, for instance, and those positions, they become ancient by the time that the test is certified. So qualified in place exam was a mechanism to allow for not only incumbents who have been doing the job for a long time, but also where it makes sense, certify folks to do the job with their licenses. And there's multiple cases where there's state licenses requirement that the workers already have and are not to be waiting months and months to certify just because there are thousands and thousands of jobs to be had. And so we are not only in support of it, we proposed the idea and we're looking to expand that in the future. I mentioned pathways as another example. Waiving the exam fee is really important. I think the last thing I would suggest for recruiting young people is specifically your point about high school. We did a pilot program with the School Construction Authority of those young students who have the aptitude towards architecture, for instance. I am an architect myself and found the process to be incredibly cumbersome for you to work. And so what happens is it's not just an issue of salary, which is a big issue, remaining competitive, but also making it easier for those students who they go from high school to community colleges, to colleges, to be able to be onboarded. So we proposed back then, when Lorraine Grillo was the chair, to bring in high school students to participate in a year-round full internship program, like the College Aid program, train them, and if they have the aptitude, then when they got to college, they could apply and be given credit towards their civil service points in order to take the test and when they exam. And I think that it's extremely valuable and something that we should be expanding in the city of New York.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I may have more questions, but I'm gonna ask for you to testify.
I'm Gloria Middleton, president of CWA, as you know.
Yes.
Right. President of CWA Local 1180, Gloria Middleton. I'm going to yield to my Secretary Treasurer, Robin Blair Back, to give the testimony, and then I'm here to answer. We're both here to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Robin Blair Batt, Secretary Treasurer of CWA Local 1180, representing 9,000 public sector workers. We are here to talk about rebuilding the municipal workforce. But this is not just about filling vacancies. It's about fixing a system that is no longer working. It's about agencies being understaffed. Part of the problem is the breakdown in the hiring process. Civil service exams are delayed, and the growing reliance on education and experience evaluations undermines fairness. When everyone scores the same, there's no real ranking and no real merit-based system. Even when lists exist, hiring moves far too slowly. Qualified candidates are waiting years to be called. By the time the city reaches them, they've moved on. We have to move people through it faster. We also need stronger oversight. The disbanding of the Department of Personnel weakened accountability, and the system has not recovered. It must be restored. We should introduce young people, especially high school students, to public service careers, creating clear pathways into civil service, and partnering with institutions that can connect education to real job opportunities. If we want the next generation to serve, we must show them the path. We also have to make these jobs sustainable. Too many city workers cannot afford to live in the city they serve while often being required to do so. Affordable housing for city workers. Salaries are not keeping up with the cost of living, and that is driving people away. Furthermore, we cannot ignore workforce expectations. Remote work is not a perk, it is a reality. Where it is feasible, it must be permanent if we want to compete for talent. Rebuilding a workforce requires urgency, faster hiring, real oversight, strong career pathways, affordability, and competitive pay. Because when the system fails, it's not just workers who suffer, the public does too. Thank you.
I just wanted to add to that, in talking about Henry, getting to the younger people. The council approved the $2.5 million budget for the Social Justice Training Corps for high school students through the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, and that program is going to in effect September. The university is going to go into one high school in every borough, pick a certain amount of students that will take courses for civic participation, as well as understanding what the civil service process is and how good it is to serve the public in a civil service job. They will get pre-college courses, get some credits for that, and then be able to move into the School of Labor and Urban Studies as a full-time student. And funding has come from the council as well as from the federal government. And we're asking the council to expand that program as we try to make high school students understand the importance of moving into civil service. Because right now, schools don't even talk about labor, how important it is to be in union, how important it is to, serve your community, et cetera. And we thank the council who was approved from the former speaker, that they saw the insight of pushing this program forward, and we hope this new council will do the same.
We must have had the same thing for breakfast this morning. Because I have a great concern that the city's not doing enough in their recruitment efforts, but they're also not connecting, young people to, the possibility of, civil service jobs, and most students out there have no idea what, they think elves come and, run the city at night. But but I think that there's a real issue with recruitment, and I feel like we need to really start with our young people, at least at the high school level, whether it's through job fairs or, some kind of programs where students start to learn that there are other opportunities in New York City, that there are pathways for them to enter civil service, where be it through college or through, internship programs or any kind of programs that the city will offer to our young folks.
If I may, I also serve as a member of the Workforce Investment Board, and we receive millions of dollars from the federal government for the WE app. So far, most of that has been used to enforce welfare to work former programs leading people who come out of welfare into jobs, as opposed to their partnership, pre-apprenticeship type models. And one of my biggest complaints of being on the board, and I recently expressed this to SBS and the other agencies, is this, right? We represent in government 10% of the city's workforce, 10%. Yet $0 go for workforce development through the WIA boards, the SBS fund, or the workforce centers to encourage people to apply and to retain it. The expectation for those 10% of the city works, like Gloria, myself, and other city workers, is that you're going to collectively bargain a training fund. And that training fund is going to come from wages. So, for instance, when I became the head of DC 37, I found out we're spending $2.38 to train engineers and bookkeepers and accountants, which seemed utterly ridiculous. we since negotiated a training fund that makes sense, but we had to do it out of wages. We had to take a portion of the raises that city workers get to create a fund to train the city's workforce, to supply the city workforce with its own workforce. So to certified accountants, to get IT workers signed, to get folks in the architecture and the engineering firms, social workers, a big piece of the city's component. We had no social worker training. And so we had to do that. In the next round of bargaining that you mentioned, I think it's important that we recognize that the city must invest in its workers. And to do so, it needs to do so not just from the perspective of collective bargaining, but to do so in the matters to do. I'm baffled that all those contracts for workforce development are going to for-profit institutions from Texas and Michigan and other places. And none of it are going to CUNY and to workforce development areas or nonprofits here in New York. And I've been pushing at the workforce in my role as trustee to be able to open up that process to allow for local training and workforce development and pre-apprenticeship like programs for city workers to come out of the community to be able to have access to CUNY and other programs like Lori has mentioned.
One of the other issues that has come up time and time again, and you mentioned social workers, but EMT workers and paraprofessionals in our schools, which you represent a good number of them, and the paraprofessionals work for the DOE, but they do work in, in homeless shelters and other places, working with students and children with special needs. That is an area where they're paid very, very low, and the turnover rate is very, very high. And with the expansion of, childcare programs, and in the case of EMTs and social workers, expansion of programs like Be Heard and community safety, what what do you, and I keep hearing from OMB and OLR that, well, that's a collective bargaining issue, but my point to them is, well, if you don't invest the money, then it's not going to be collectively bargained. So
Yeah, I think, look, the reality is pattern bargaining has been the law of the land here since the time of fiscal crisis. But the reality is pattern bargaining doesn't address low-wage workers in the way it should, and it doesn't address recruitment and retention issues, right? And so to do that, we at DC 37 addressed it by creating an equity fund that allow us to make adjustments in salaries in titles like nurses and psychiatrists and social workers and case managers. But again, that comes out of bargaining. And I think the problem is the need is so great that even when you talk about raising the minimum wage, it becomes a very large effort for us. So I think, I couldn't agree with you more about the need for the city to recognize that it is high time to do something different in that process. And we believe part of that is to increase that equity fund to address recruitment and retention, to your point, because we have paraprofessionals in the schools. The number of CADA cases are exploding. We do attendance, we do school-based support, we do hearing, visually impaired kids, that if you don't provide the services, a private contractor has to. And sometimes at a rate 10 times higher than what the city could do in-house. So you're not just dealing with turnover, as you mentioned before, you're also paying for that turnover. You're paying it through the same thing with Be Heard and the private ambulances, right, on 911. And I think that's something we need to really address, the cost of the city of not having the right, the workers there and the retention costs associated with turnover.
Okay. For us, we have what we call administrative managers and principals and associates that work in the city, which supervise some of his people. When it comes to pay that's equal to the work that they've done, we actually had to file a lawsuit for a title that we obtained some years ago. And EEO had found that the minimum wage had been suppressed for years once women and minorities obtained the title. Surprise, surprise. And as a result of that, we settled the lawsuit, during the de Blasio administration, and we now have our administrative managers earning a decent salary with steps. If they make the minimum when they come in, they have steps to make that salary increase. But now what we're finding is they're not using that title. When people say that they're working out a title, they find another title to put them in so that they don't have to increase them to the salaries that we have for the administrative managers. That's something else we're looking at, and we hope we don't have to sue the city again. But it's being done, and it's obvious. Certain agencies, not all of them. That's why we're suggesting there be a certain part of DCAS that says Department of Personnel to hold agencies accountable to the civil service system to make sure that agencies are following the rules, to make sure that discrimination is not happening, because there is a group in DCAS that is supposed to look at the EEO practices of agencies. They look at it, they get statistics, and they sit there. What good is that? So that's why one of the reasons we're suggesting that DCAS be expanded, that have that Department of Personnel, that they be able to be accountable to the agencies to make sure that they follow the civil service rules. And as he talked about OMB, I know there's a new commissioner. We're grateful for that, because once an agency, in the olden days, when DCAS approved, or the Department of Personnel approved an agency to call a list, once they had a pool or a hiring pool, whatever they did, the person was called at that pool, they got the job, and they was sent to the new location and paid immediately. What we have found over and over again, especially in the title of administrative manager, is the agency will call the pool, the person gets appointed, and it takes them 6 months, a year and a half to get paid or get to be assigned. And that's because it had to go back to OMB. Why are we doing this double time at OMB? It makes no sense. Back in the day, that did not happen. I don't know where the change happened, but yes, we do. But we need the council to look at that. Okay.
I think one of the ideas that we need to really explore is the idea that people who take exams, civil service exam, they pay a fee. That fee goes into the general fund. It doesn't go to enforce examination. It doesn't go to help promote more exams, right? It's like, in Gloria and I have been dealing with this issue on PSAC 2 in the Bronx, and believe in your district, where 911 operators, the high turnover rate is incredible. And as a result, more overtime, mandatory overtime, higher turnover, higher response time for 911 operators. She represents the supervisors, and I represent the call takers and the number of dispatchers in it. And recruitment and retention is just terrible, right? And so the idea is that every time you have a phone bill for, whether it's a landline, voice over internet, or cell phone, there's a 911 surcharge that goes in there that the city and the state collects, but none of that's used for the 911 folks for recruitment, retention, or training. It goes into the general fund in the same manner that the fees collected for DCAS go into the general fund. And then there's no money for this and there's no money for that. I think one of the concepts that the council should consider is redirecting those funds to where they should be going to. If people pay to take civil service exams, they should be used, those fees should be used to enforce civil services rights, to shorten the appeal rule, to shorten the time that people to certify a list, as Gloria said, and not that OMB will have to make that decision separate and apart, and similar to the 911 concept that I mentioned before. And that's how you address some of this recruitment and retention and the civil service exam, by identifying a source of funding that will go to the purpose that is intended to do, and not just to a general fund that becomes, subject to all and everything and every force in the world. We need to invest in our workers. That's how you mean, right? A budget is sustainment of values. So if you value the workers that you want to train, you want to recruit the best and the brightest, you invest on it. And you should recognize that that's the need.
Going into training, our people work in the SNAP centers, they work everywhere. But especially those in the social service areas. Back in the day, they used to have a training center where they would invest in the workers to make sure that they understood what their job was. If you have people coming off the street to learn how to give social services, you can't give them 2 weeks of training and think they know the job. Okay, it used to be a 6-week training. It used to be 8 weeks of training, and they had to pass a test in order to go back into the centers because they knew the job and they were comfortable doing it. There's so much retention in that because they don't understand the job, and then when they get there, it's a whole nother world. The supervisors need supervisory training. You can't give them 2 or 3 days of training and say, okay, you're a supervisor. And then that causes people not to be able to properly manage their people, and then it causes people to say, okay, I'm out of here. All right? And managers used to have training on how to manage because there's a difference between a supervisor and a manager. And that's not being done. We offer in our local that sort of training, but it shouldn't be on us. It should be on the city to make sure that their workers are trained properly to do the job that they need them to do, especially in high volatile and high pressure jobs.
If I'm hearing you correctly, the city has basically pushed the training and the workforce development onto the union.
Most of it, yes.
Yes, there's a parallel system for pre-apprenticeship programs that they get for prevailing wage titles that represent covered by the 220 law. There's funding that comes from the state that gets funded through the state or federal funding. For city workers that are primarily covered by our collective bargaining agreement is pushed onto us. We're supposed to come up with the funding through collective bargaining, and usually where it comes from is wages. So if the value of 1% for city, it's 468 million. You take a portion of that 1% for your wages and put it into training, or 1% and put it into healthcare or whatever. So that's what's been happening traditionally for Gloria and for all 102 municipal unions in the city of New York.
We have
Training comes out of the funding.
We have an education fund where we actually give college credits. We pay for college credits. We have an education fund where we do workplace literacy. We're developing it now online so that people will be able to access it without coming into the union. DCAS has some programs that they offer workers, but people have to know about it. A lot of workers don't even know what programs they offer. And then you have to get permission from your supervisor director to be able to attend that because it's on the city's time. So the city needs a plan on how to train their workers and how to make sure that they are viable to do the jobs that they are assigned to do.
And we believe one way to do that is to open up the funding for the WIA and the small business services to CUNY to train those workers. That has not happened. We've been pushing really hard for this because, to your point about paraprofessionals, we need teachers. Right now, I have 168 uncertified teachers that I represent. They are likely to lose their job if they don't pay. They pay out of pocket, right? You need them. So why not train paraprofessionals to become teachers? That was a program that existed before, doesn't exist anymore because there's an expectation. You got to pay out of your collective bargaining. So for me to train my paras to become teachers, this career program, I have to pay for it. And to say to paras, you're going to get paid less to get trained, to get certified as a teacher, where you are then going to go out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's really hard because they're having a choice between getting a better salary and actually, or paying for their education. That's not a choice. That's a real hard decision to make.
Yeah. No, and paraprofessionals make, what, $33,000 a year?
They're between 38 and 60. In my case, like school-based support system, the paras in the shelter, we took out our equity to give them a difference because of some of the violence that was taking place and the difficulty to get to those shelters. But like you have programs like with pregnant teens that the parents are doing to provide services. They're harder to recruit because they require more work. And let's not talk about special ed. That's even worse. Like for our workers who are dealing with special ed children, population, hard of hearing, vision impaired. You know, we both represent the UFT and us. We represent paras. It's becoming a real tough time keeping those workers. They leave. Our turnover ratio is about 38% for those paras now.
And teachers are leaving too because they're having to do the work of that the paras are doing.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. I just want to remind anyone, if you want to testify, please fill out the card with the Sergeant at Arms in the back. I will call up Gregory Morris.
Thank you very much. Oh,
Yep, we had it.
thanks so much for making this time. My name is Greg Morris, the CEO of the New York City Employment Training Coalition. Great to see you again.
Good to see you again.
I submitted testimony online. I'm not going to get too caught up in that right now because you can read that separately. I just want to double down on some things that I think are important to follow up on some of the earlier content that you heard. You know, the city is not short on good ideas. The city is not short on good workforce development, and the city is not short on dynamic, skilled, positive, and powerful municipal workers. The city is short on how to put the pieces together to build the pipeline to maximize the supports that the existing workforce needs, and to build, as you pointed out, the on-ramps for the next generation of folks who are going to fulfill the needs and interests of the municipal workforce. The reason for that, and I want to credit the earlier panel, the reason for that is because we don't think about how to connect what labor is doing with what city colleges are doing, with what the workforce development providers that I represent are doing. And I think there's a particular opportunity and an urgency in this moment for you, Chair, and your committee to hold the city, its Workforce Development Board, which Henry Grito mentioned earlier, to hold our Mayor's Office of Town and Workforce Development, to hold all of the city agencies with a hand in workforce development, to hold DCAS accountable for taking a very hard look at how it is that we create the intersections that will support training, whether you are part of the particular municipal workforce or you are seeking to be part of. Whether you're thinking about advancement and retention, the reality is no one entity can solve this on their own. And the City Council's interest and investment in trying to make sure that the city is held accountable for stitching together providers like the 220 that I represent who are in this space in terms of training, the city colleges, CUNY in particular, as well as labor, coming together to figure out how it is that we hold each other accountable for supporting the pipelines, the advancement, and the retention is absolutely key in this moment, because no one entity can solve this on their own. And you and this council may be the only ones that are elevating this topic at this particular moment in our city's history when, as you know, my last point, our municipal workforce is smaller than it has ever been, and it is the one true pathway to the middle class. I'll pause there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've heard in the past, and I heard it today from folks on the labor panel, OMB's role in hiring.
You mean OMB's role in stifling hiring? Is
In
that what you meant?
stifling hiring. Well, yeah. I'm not sure why they have that role, but what are your thoughts on it? How can we what are your thoughts about streamlining the hiring process, making it easier to to have a real pipeline that's not clogged
Yeah.
in the middle by by OMB. And, how can we build more effective recruitment and hiring and retention?
Yeah,
for
the
City of
the hardest part of this is that you have to do about 4 or 5 things at exactly the same time. And what I mean by that, what I mean is you first have to have the metrics and accountability resource, that you have to have the data to say what agencies are actually staffing up effectively, where is it that folks are in the pipeline, where is it that I have folks waiting for the testing, how long is it to take placement. I would suggest right now we don't have crystal clarity about that. So the first part is, I would say to you, we have to think about what our benchmark is. Where are we right now? And then we need to establish indicators that can demonstrate how it is that agencies can move up or down from there. That's a starting point. I think at exactly the same time, there needs to be an investment, as was noted by the earlier panel, in talking to young people about all of the different jobs that exist within the municipal workforce that you probably don't hear about, don't know, and don't get exposed to. Why is that hard to do? Because there's a lot of schools and a lot of kids. So we have to do those two things at the same time. At exactly the same time, as Henry pointed out earlier, we've got to think about how we're training and supporting the existing workforce, because the reality is you can't create new pipelines unless folks are able to demonstrate their skill sets and excel. And so in doing that, I think the investment between CUNY, labor, I think the workforce providers that I work with who possibly can do the additional wraparound supports and the retention supports in a way that would be valuable, impactful, culturally sensitive, and effective would be beneficial. In other words, you got to look at the numbers at the same time as you tell people there's a possibility, at the same time as you say, here is it how we're going to work together to solve this particular problem, and that we see the value in that. And by the way, we don't have to boil the ocean here. Start with the simple fact that we need drivers. How do we get to the CDL licenses? How do we do that faster and more thoughtfully? Let's focus on that. We can start with pinpoint, more laser-focused accuracy on a thing as opposed to everything. And that, I would suggest, might particularly be helpful as we navigate what is going to be an essential challenge. And not for nothing, the reality of the shortage that we have in the early childcare space right now is going to completely undermine any of this city's ability to ensure that childcare is accessible and high quality. So again, if we're thinking about pinpointing, okay, let's focus on CDL licenses because that's how we address the driving issues. Let's focus on childcare. How do we think about it related to construction as well? If we're going to build 200,000 more units of housing, we're going to have more apprentices than we have right now. We're going to have a stronger workforce than we have right now. All that to say, it seems to me we've got to do a bunch of different things at the same time. And in this city, that gets really hard to do unless someone says it's my priority. And there's going to be a benefit if you do it, and there's going to be a consequence if you don't. I would love for you, Chair, to be sitting in this room looking at me, Henry, and other folks, and Lauren Anderson at CUNY and others, and saying, how are we doing? Are we doing better? And have DCAS at the end of the table looking at the numbers with you to say, we're doing great here, but it's not great here. How do we fix that? As opposed to what this is, which is saying to you, we got to do a lot of things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
More to come. Thanks.
We're gonna make a final call for Zoom registrants who have not yet spoken. If there's anyone on Zoom, I don't think so, but okay. Confirm that there's no one on Zoom. Seeing no one wanting to speak, I'd like to note that everyone can submit written testimony to testimony@councilnewyorkcity.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. We thank the administration and the public for attending this hearing to share their thoughts on the legislation, this oversight. We look forward to following up on these issues, and with that, this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you. You guys sit down, I have a lot of answers.